Hey guys, we're coming to you from Dallas, Texas today. I've got some pork spare ribs. They are St. Louis style, which means they basically just trimmed some extra off there. You'll usually see like one rack of spare ribs could be the same size as these two racks of St. Louis. I just like the St. Louis ribs. I find better than the regular spare ribs or baby backs. Just my opinion. So what I've done so far is you can see there I've trimmed some excess off there. I had a different video going, but my phone shut off on me. I didn't realize the battery was dead. So I had to plug it in and charge up a little bit. Anyways, so what you're going to want to do is first take them out of the package that they come in, throw them under some really cold water, and just rinse all of the stuff off that's in the package. It's going to be blood and then other liquids from the processing plant that you just want to get off there before you start cooking and eat your ribs. Once you're done that, you'll want to, on top here, there was all kinds of fat thrown it in the bag now. That's what it looks like. It's really chewy. It will not render down when you're cooking like normal fat would. So you want to get rid of that as much as possible. Obviously, like you can see there, there's a little bit more left on there. I don't want to mess with it too much because I'm basically down to the bare bone on that area. Now, on the flip side, on my other rack, I've got the membrane started to peel here. This is very, very tough, and you don't want to try and cut it off. It's just a pain in the butt if you try. So what you want to do is just kind of get your knife underneath the bone there. I'll try and show you as well as I can with one hand, but you just want to peel, and you do it on the first rib. Once you're done the first rib, you can grab a hold of it. You can kind of see with a paper towel, it's just a lot easier, and you just peel. So once you're done that, you'll want to put the rub on. I use my own rub that I make. It's in a generic steak seasoning package from a couple of years ago, but it's basically ground pepper. I use coarse ground, kosher salt, some garlic, some ground mustard, brown sugar, some sage, and then a couple other seasonings as well. The first thing that I do before I put the rub on, after I'm done trimming and cleaning the ribs off, is I apply mustard. And a lot of you, if you're from Texas, are probably going to think that I'm insane. This is just something I've picked up over the years. I've been cooking quite a while now, and I've traveled around. I've eaten a ton of barbecue, and it's just a little trick that I picked up. It's surprisingly, with the amount that I'm going to put on there, and I'll show you how much I put on, you'd think they're going to taste really sour or tart. And they don't. I don't know what happens with that mustard when the smoke hits it, but it really milds the flavor out mixed with the rub, and it tastes really good. It gives the ribs an awesome color as well, and so I just like the way it works. It also holds the rub on there. So I just, like I said, it's my opinion. I like using mustard. If you don't, that's completely up to you. But we'll pause the video here. I'm going to finish cleaning these ribs up, and then I'll show you how to apply the mustard and the rub. Thanks. Just real quick, you can show yourself here, you can see here this big chunk of meat that they forgot to take off. Underneath there is all kinds of that nasty fat that I was talking about, and I just haven't trimmed it off. Before I cut it off, this is what it looks like. After you cut it off, it's going to look like that. So again, this is disgusting. You want to take it off. Do not eat it. It's gross. On the underneath, this is what you're going to look like once you peel that membrane off. And just a quick side note on that membrane, a lot of people question why you take it off. And again, I've said some people will leave it on there. They don't mind it. The Native Americans actually used to use that to make string. So that just goes to show you how tough that stuff is. It does not break down very well, and it's not very fun to have to chew on. I messed up on one of the racks, and the stuff wasn't coming off like it usually does, but this is generally what it looks like when you're done. It's very, very thin. If you stretch it out, you can see through it. I'm going to go wash my hands, and then we'll get to the fun part. All right, back again. My camera is really giving me fits here, so I'm going to have to throw these into a few different videos, but you can see that big chunk of meat is gone now off the top there. This is what it looked like before. And again, all that gross fat under there. That meat, I mean, I don't usually do anything with it. It's probably about 4 ounces or so. I've cut it up before and cooked it and given it to my dogs, but I don't feel like screwing around with it today, so I'm just going to go straight to the application of the mustard and the rub. Um, you want to get a good amount on there, more than you would think. Most of the time people think of mustard and they think, oh my god, it's really sour, and you wouldn't want that much on there. But for this, like I said before, the smoke, once it hits it, takes that tartness away for the most part. So don't be scared of the mustard. And that should do it. Okay, so that's what they're gonna look like before. Take the brush, pretty simple. Just kind of brush everything on there. You'll want to get it pretty even. It doesn't have to be perfect. And again, this is just something I do. If you're too creeped out by it, if you think it's going to taste awful, I recommend, if you can spring for, like, both of these racks were, I think, just a shade over $20. Try one rack with it and then try one rack without it and see what you prefer. Kind of go from there. I'd hate to ruin someone's barbecue just because they didn't like the taste of mustard. But just a side note, my wife hates mustard. She thinks it's disgusting, and I've been making ribs like this for quite a few years now, and she never has said anything. I don't ever tell her there's mustard on there, but I guess the secret's out now, and she loves the ribs. So anyway, that's what they're gonna look like before you throw the rub on. Be careful with this, with the rub, if you use this kind of shaker. Just because if you throw too much on there, they can get salty really quick. When you're making the rub too, you gotta watch your quantities of everything that you're putting in there. Too much salt, too much pepper can ruin it. So just be careful. I usually say 50% salt, 50% pepper if you're just using the two of those, and then from there, you can kind of mix in the other stuff and just kind of taste it as you go. Again, you don't want any one thing to stand out too much, or it'll overpower the taste of the ribs, and then you'll have some unhappy guests. All right, we're almost done. So typically, like when you're using, if you don't use mustard, you waste a lot of rub, because it doesn't stick to the meat as well. You'll see it bouncing all over the place, and you'll end up with probably about 1/4 of a cup of it sitting on your cookie sheet or on your table or your counter. So these are all ready to go on now. I used to use straight wood. I'm waiting for a new offset smoker. So right now I've just got a kettle grill that I bought a couple months ago, and I've been using charcoal. I will use some wood chips. I've got a mix of peach and hickory that I bought. The bags, you can usually find them at Walmart or Academy Sports, depending on what state you're in, for about $2. My favorite's cherry. Haven't been able to find it in a couple months, so I've been using this mix of peach and hickory, and it turns out great. So we're going to pause the video again, and I'll come back in a few minutes. Real quick too, for those of you who are interested, if you don't have a good kettle grill, I recommend getting one. They're really, really cool. This one is a charbroil. I believe it's called the Kettleman. I found it on sale at Home Depot about a month and a half to 2 months ago. I was originally going in there to get a Weber. This one was quite a bit cheaper and came with a lot more accessories. It's got a little latch here to keep the lid closed. The vents on this thing are huge. So on the top here, you see there's a little bit of surface rust. I haven't been doing a good job of covering it up in the rain. But on the sides here, you've got a lot of airflow, wheels, little rack on the bottom, and then it has a removable ashtray on the bottom here too. When you open it up, you've got the top rack here, and then you actually have a middle rack. That's where they say to put the coals. I actually got a small grill grate and put it farther down in the smoker or the grill. And I like my coals being farther away from the food just because you can control the temperature more. But that's pretty much it for the grill. It was a really, really good buy, and I will probably keep buying this if I go through grills pretty quick. If some breaks or something, or if one of my friends needs a grill, I'll give this to him and get another one. It's been great so far, especially for $100. Can't beat it. Again, there's the name of it, the Kettleman. It was really easy to put together too. It took about 10 minutes. I'll be back with the meat. Oh yeah, real quick, get yourself a chimney starter if you don't have one, and if you're using charcoal. These things are clutch. They cost like $4 at Lowe's or Home Depot, and they work wonders. I go with, for ribs, I go fill about half of it up. You don't want to get too many coals in there or you're going to burn your ribs, especially on a kettle grill like this. It's harder to control the temperature than if you're using an offset smoker, which is what I typically use. We've got water pan there. That's what the tray looks like for the chips that I'm going to be using. It's just a banana bread tray. They're 2 for $3 at the store. Now on top of there, you're going to put the cooking grate, and then you'll throw the ribs on top of that and come back. You probably have to reload the charcoal at least once, sometimes twice, but hopefully we can go with once today. It's not very windy and it's pretty hot outside, so we should be able to hold the temperature pretty well. All right, ribs are on. I'm getting ready to close this up. You can't see with the camera, but there is some smoke coming off that wood already. You don't want to open this thing up very much. A lot of people get excited. They want to look at the ribs. They want to look at whatever else they're cooking, pork butt, chicken, brisket. Don't open the lid. You lose about 80 degrees just from opening the lid up. And it can take quite a little while for the temperature to come back up. So just leave it alone. As long as your grill gauge there. This one's actually pretty accurate. I used a digital thermometer too compared to that one, and it was within about 8 degrees. So use a digital thermometer if you're not okay with using the onboard one. But you want to make sure, like I said, that stays around 250 to 300. If it dips, below 250 to like 235, you're okay. If it goes above 300, you want to start thinking about trying to play around with the temperature, closing some vents, or I've even sprayed some water on the charcoals just to cool them down a little bit. So again, 250 to 300, and come back. You'll want to use a meat probe if you have one to see when they're done, especially if this is your first time or second time doing it. I have been doing it so long now that I kind of know when they're done. So we'll see you back when they're finished.